Well, hello Canada, I'm David Blyth. When I was about 21, 22 and I had that first feature film, it was called Angel Mine, I was putting up posters in Sydney, Australia, and I went into a shop called Game Birds and asked the woman if she'd put an Angel Mine poster up, and it turned out to be the notorious, infamous Madame Lash. So before I knew it, I was at a dinner, and then in the flash of an eye I was tied up to a St. John's cross, and things just went from there. I've had it as a theme over a number of years. I actually made a B movie up here in Canada called Hot Blooded. It's a Kari Wura film, and it's basically what I describe as a dominatrix road movie. So I've always sort of had an affinity with the dominatrixes. We seem to understand each other. I understand very clearly the kind of role-play, performance, transformational therapy that they're involved in, and of course I guess I came to them in a way where I wasn't going for the cliche, the stereotype, because they're just like the women next door. It's just that they have a slightly different career curve. And in fact, the film that's on here at the festival, Bound for Pleasure, the narrator is from, she describes it as Mudhole, Canada. She is a PhD who was in New Zealand teaching at Waikato University and took up the profession of being a dominatrix. So there is a definite Canadian connection in this film, Bound for Pleasure. With Transfigured Nights, you couldn't really have a whole film crew standing by. It had to be me doing it all. With Bound for Pleasure, I'm also, I teach part-time at a film school, and often I found that myself and my regular cameraman were so kind of intimidated and blown away by what we were seeing that we actually used one of my younger students to go in and do the camera work, because they didn't have the kind of sexual baggage that you get when you're over 40. So, it's interesting, and that was a woman in this case. Okay. Basically, Transfigured Nights came out of when the Yahoo user groups were still the Wild West. And that's 3-4 years ago, and then they stepped in and shut it all down. Because basically there were groups up to some very nefarious things, and there'd be an ad underneath it for state insurance or something. And of course eventually some American TV station picked up on this wild discrepancy. But it took a number of years to actually move down into this very unique little boutique that I've found. And one just had to go very gently with it and be very patient. It's also a time zone thing, because I made the whole film from my own lounge. I haven't actually physically met these people. They are all around the world. There were none of them in New Zealand.
It's all webcam.
It's all webcam. It's new ground. And I was always fascinated by the way that, for instance, Derek Jarman, a great English film director, blew up his Super 8 footage into 35. An example would be the angelic conversation. And what you get is you get textures, so that in the case of Super 8, it's grain of the film, but in the case of Transfigured Nights and the internet, it's digital information. And I was fascinated with the way that can be blown up and what's going on there. And what I very quickly realized is that the internet and desire are completely seamless. Then when I got in further, I realized that having a degree in anthropology, that I always understood that masks were transformational, but when you add an audience of 30 worldwide that are applauding you and loving your performance, you get the most incredible high off this. Some of my little friends in the film would be up on their cameras for maybe 19 hours a day in the high cycle of their addiction. Now, there is a whole new world of addiction that we're coming to understand. And you know, your friendly shrink would even talk about clusters, because there's a lot of smoking of all sorts. There's all sorts of other activities that come in to combine with the internet and the performance. And the players are high as kites.
Really?
It's a total stepping out of your body, and they're going to, and I think the therapists will soon be talking about the potency of it as being as strong as maybe a coke addiction. I did 5 of the first episodes of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Let me tell you that story. You know, Power Rangers was a Japanese series called Galaxy Rangers, and what the Israeli producers did was they got some film students to write scripts around the bits of the Power Ranger episodes that didn't have, they cut all the Japanese faces out, rewrote some LA stuff with the kids, and then the moment those masks went back on, we were back into Galaxy Rangers. So, you know, it was a piece of genius on their part. Genius, because they made mega millions out of it. But what I learnt from it is that the moment the mask's on, you don't know who the hell's behind that mask. And of course, the great thing about masking is that it's very empowering. And, you know, they can be on the internet as Miss Piggy or any number of things, and then take their, you know, go to their daughter's PTA meeting, parent-teacher meeting that night at wherever they are in the world, and, you know, no one's going to know that they have that secret life. You know, the problem without prejudice is that we all do have prejudice. Basically, I saw that this was another route into the unconscious. The directors that are my heroes still are Buñuel and Jodorowsky, Cocteau, David Lynch, and they're all dealing in the unconscious. And so really, I just kept buying more hard drives, because I didn't really want to, the power bill went up too, because of course you have to get gruntier and gruntier power supplies to drive all those hard drives. So yeah, I just, you know, went with it. I started to wear masks as well. I started to go deeper into the culture, because like all of these unique boutiques on the internet, you have to be part of it to actually get to see what's going on. So coming back to the whole thing of the internet and desire, it's fascinating how this new technology is actually enabling this kind of transformational thing to happen, and it's also fascinating that, like all technologies, there's all these incredible positive levels, but often some of the negatives haven't been thought through, and I would definitely say that it's highly, highly addictive.